Welcome, everyone, back to the Puff Drink Talk podcast. Conrad here.
Hilton.
George.
And Sean.
Our special guest, Sean. And if you haven't listened to part one of the podcast, we were getting into it. Talking a little bit about this, a little bit about that, coffee, and all of our fun topics about academia. And smart people, question mark. Anyways, let's get back into it. So, Sean, I love the story, and did you want to continue with what you were saying, or do you want to move on from kind of the...
Okay, present the cards. Let's see. Well, that's what you have in the cards.
There's so few things in life I care about that, whenever somebody offers me, say, what do you want, this for dinner or this? I'm like, I don't care. And then some people do care. I legitimately do not care.
You don't care?
So whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if you wanted to finish your thought on that. It was very interesting.
You can always circle back.
Yeah. I love listening to the story about your presentation you did about how you would handle the situation in Iran to all of those military figures at Stanford. It was not
Iran. It was, well, I guess. So there was a course where the culmination of the course ends with a simulation exercise. And so essentially we're simulating being part of the National Security Council. And then we're kind of put in different teams. And the person running the class was Joe Biden's, when he was vice president, his national security advisor. And so I got put on the DOD team, the Department of Defense team, which I was kind of looking forward to. And then you have the State Department, all the different departments, and then you have kind of the Security Council heads. And so the premise of the scenario was, man, I can't even remember. Essentially, there's issues in the Middle East, and Israel kills one of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders, and I believe it was in Iraq. Again, this is kind of a fake exercise, and then Iran retaliates, and so I just remember as kind of being assigned to the DOD side of the house. Our job is to kind of build out scenarios in which how we would respond to this, and I'm a realist, a political realist, maybe in life. And so we live in a cold, dangerous, dark world, and we're lucky that we've advanced to the point where we are, where we kind of have generally good relations with most countries. But at the end of the day, self-interest, I think, will kind of push countries and the people running them to do certain things. And if you always kind of approach scenarios like this, where you say, maybe there'll be good faith intentions here. I mean, that's nice to kind of hope for, but from a planning standpoint, let's not do that. And so I remember pushing my team really hard of no, we're the DOD. And again, kind of really leveraging the idea that DOD is hugely funded, tons of money. And you were in the Marines, so if you don't use the money, you're going to lose the money. And so might as well just go hard. And so for me, the entire Middle East and things with Iran and Israel and the Middle East have been 50, 60 years of just the same thing. It's this cycle, something happens, Israel does something, there's a war, Israel kind of does their thing, and then they maybe take a little land, but then it kind of gets called off. We're in Iraq. But it's kind of the same thing. People are just going to bother Israel. Israel get pissed off. They're going to retaliate or respond. And so I was screw this. Let's be realistic as a team, and let's just take a very aggressive, realist approach to this. Let's send 2 carrier groups, one through the Mediterranean and one into the Gulf, and let's just do a complete let's end this. Why? And I just remember as we're putting out this plan, the people in my class, some of them, were so disgusted at this was an option. They were just this isn't real. Nobody would ever do this. And then they're in my mind, I'm just the State Department's been having conversations about all this for 50 years, and it's gotten us nowhere. There's still all these proxy wars, all this stuff going on. We're worried about nuclear weapons and enrichment. Hamas is randomly attacking Israel all the time. like, at what point do we just call a spade and just like, let's go solve this now? Or we could keep doing what we did around like when, World War II, where it's just like, okay, let's keep like kicking the can down the road until eventually you have to get involved. So I was like, come on guys, let's be really hard. And so that's what we did. Our recommendation was like, send 2 carrier groups, essentially tell Israel like, hey, we got your back, go do what you have to do. Obviously right now it's kind of the inverse. We're kind of doing most of the work. For me, it was very fascinating as someone who approaches it as a realist, watching the people in my cohort who think that this type of option is something that would never happen in the real world. And they're saying like, no, like this would never happen. And so as the things kicked off, you have carriers in the Mediterranean. That was just kind of crazy. I didn't even know they really did that. But even I remember when we briefed the class on kind of like what the options that we were presenting were. I remember I was talking to the friend who was in my group with me, and I was telling him, man, are you working in the White House? He doesn't. He works at a think tank. But he was like, no, why? And I was like, they're essentially doing the same plan that we put out. And he's like, dude, I was laughing. He's like, I remember that. He's like, and you remember when Colin Call, the guy who's running the class, he even called us the Department of War. And so, which they changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War recently. And so it was just like kind of this kind of like you were talking about how like certain things kind of trigger memories. So like watching this unfold, and I mean just being told by people that are supposed to be smart, like, oh, this is stupid, this would never happen. And again, in the realist world, this is probably the thing that we should have done in the first place. But that's exactly what they did. And so watching it all play out, and again, I'm not saying like it's a good thing or the right decision, but from a department, like if you're the Department of Defense and you're like, okay, like we keep getting tangled in all these things, like, well, how do we stop this? For me, it was like, oh, like let's be realists here and like be very aggressive. It's like if you have a bully that's picking on your little brother or something, or somebody, a friend, you could sit there and try to like reason with him. But if he keeps bullying your brother or your friend, at some point it's like, okay, you're going to either teach your brother how to fight or you're going to have to take care of it yourself. And I think that's kind of like how a realist views the world is, you gotta defend yourself, and you gotta prepare for the fact that as things kind of go down that rabbit hole, if you are just waiting on those good intentions and that things will de-escalate, it puts you in a very difficult position to respond when they do happen. And so like moving a bunch of aircraft carriers and assets into the region, again, dangerous, likely that we spill into another, generational war with Iran. But I think what we saw in like places like Syria historically is when you undercommit and now you're just kind of like left, embassy can get overrun, and there's no assets that you're willing to use or around that could kind of respond quickly. But anyways, that was we were at gymnastics and I was telling him, like, I was talking to that friend and we were kind of laughing about the fact that like a similar scenario played out in our recommendation, which was scoffed at and scolded by so many people, and I think our team got the best grade in that simulation somehow. I don't know. Again, very aggressive, like realist approach. Typically, it's not favored by most liberals, but obviously, like as it kind of progressed today, being able to kind of look back and say, like, oh, like, I mean, it was how it unfolded was so weird. That's why I thought one of the people in our group was actually working at the White House because it was just like textbook of what we suggested. But now who knows what's going to happen in the Middle East?
Well, in your opinion, how do you feel about the situation that's unfolding right now?
With Iran, the broader like kind of conflict in the region, Israel, all of it.
All of it. I'm not trying to cop out.
I'm going to go back. George W. Bush, when he ran for president, he was running on an America First kind of platform. Obviously, very different in kind of the way he spoke about things than maybe Donald Trump. But it was kind of like, hey, like let's start. Like we got to focus here in America first. And that's why he kind of won is he was kind of like, hey, like we have a lot of things we need to fix here internally. And then 9/11 happens, and it changes like his entire trajectory as like a politician. And I think that's something that is overlooked, is the fact that like he wasn't running on like let's go get involved in wars. It was the exact opposite. I think what happened.
I actually remember that, because I remember like, okay, so these guys coming in, and then his father was like a pro-war kind of guy, but he is completely against war, and then a year later or something like that, and then war. It's like, and it was
and
like
then another 2
Yeah.
2 years after that.
Yeah, and then it caught him like, on the back foot. He was like, I did not. This is not what I came to do, and then now I'm having to do this because military decisions is military decisions, right? I don't know how the government runs or anything, so I don't have opinions on that. But yeah,
one thing that I will say is, when there is a properly run government, there has to be some type of communication. And I think what Trump has, because it just came out like yesterday or the day before that Iran has agreed to all terms. Now the United States is supposed to go in and grab all of the enriched uranium, so they're not supposed to. Part of the agreement is that Iran isn't supposed to send their Hezbollah troops and terror. Some type of agreement was made, right, to kind of calm down this whole conflict and stuff. Similar thing with Iraq. The whole thing was we have to get Saddam Hussein. We have to get we have to get Saddam Hussein. We need to have like a regime change. Something has to happen in that country. The difference between that and Afghanistan is Afghanistan doesn't have a properly run government. There is no figurehead.
Yeah, even a society like it's so tribal, right? Like
It is very
Iraq
tribal.
has this huge history of kind of being different ethnic groups, right? But there's been some society that's kind of gelled them all together.
An identity.
Yeah, that.
And it depends on
Afghanistan
how
doesn't have
long you look back.
Yeah.
But from the modern, let's say the past 500 years, this is it, right? Because if you think about
Right, but
2,000, 3,000 years ago, it was a completely different thing.
Right, but you can go back 20 years, and Afghanistan's never had an identity. They don't have a national language. They never had a national government up until right now, where the Taliban is running it, and that was because of all of the situations that led up to it. So that's why I feel like these situations with governments in place, you can at least have the dialogue, and America, from a realist perspective, you can put them in their place and say, no more of this shit. We're not going to be dealing with it. And then come up with some agreement, and then there's peace for a little bit. But Afghanistan, that's why we were there for how many years? 20 plus years.
Yeah, this and
try to prop up a government, it falls down. You do this, and
you're
everything.
put one guy in charge, and then he disappears with money. Put another guy. Kent, who recently resigned, I think he kept referring to this as all these quagmires, and his concern with Iran is this is just going to put us in the same place. And it's kind of crazy. So I guess, maybe backtracking, I'm going to go back to Bush gets kind of he gets slapped with the reality of we live in a global complex world where people legitimately hate or dislike the United States so much they will fly planes into our buildings. And I remember vividly as a high schooler being concerned is man, that sucks. But now imagine instead of flying a plane into the Twin Towers, industry is kind of more the imagery. Imagine if they just started going in and attacking schools. That would, for me, that would have halted society a whole lot more, because the people with kids would be, I'm not sending my kid to school anymore. So it's it's so much to worry about. But then you have Bush, who's okay, I got to do this. And then I just remember what Condoleezza Rice said at a Veterans Day gathering, where she was kind of explaining some of the decision making, and how so much changed. And she said, and as somebody who had to, growing up and being in the military, you kind of have this pride of the fact that hey, you think you're doing some good, but then you kind of all these questions on why are we really there? And I think she said something that I don't 100% like totally align with it, like personally on like a moral, ethical, like perspective. But she said like, as the U.S. has historically been very isolated. We've been lucky. We're blessed by like kind of these giant oceans separating us from most of our potential enemies, and most people in the region are not kind of our enemies at all. We usually have pretty good terms with most places in the Western Hemisphere. But she's saying what the U.S. learned over time and with bloodshed was that when the U.S. does not take an active role in doing the right thing, and for a while, I just remember people like, the Save-A-Ho, America's Save-A-Ho of the world. We go world police, like kind of, we go take care. And it's rough. Like, that's not the identity you want to have. But she said, when we don't do that, that's how you get like the Holocaust. That's how you get your Hitlers. And again, this could be used and rationalized to do some very bad things around the globe. But at the same time, I mean, when visiting places where you see people oppressed and listening to Americans, everything's like everybody's oppressed in the United States, and I just like, it blows my mind. I'm like, you guys are the least oppressed people in probably the history of the world, and you guys are complaining about it. You have grievances all you want, like things are not perfect, yes, but you look at like what's going on in these other places, and then it's like, okay, like maybe, again, I'm trying to rationalize like why Bush does all this, and Condoleezza Rice saying like, if we don't do it, nobody else will. And that's kind of like something like, it's doing the right thing. It's like being a cop. If you do the right thing, people are happy. But then if you do the right thing, other people are just going to hate you still, or they'll hate you more. So like certain communities hate cops. No matter how good the cops will ever be, they'll be hated by certain communities. Yeah. And it's just like something you have to accept. And I think that's one of the things that has always stood out to me about like how things kind of progressed with the 9/11 is this complete shift from focus on America to like now we have to. And I think this is like really when I like looking back is like, this is why people need to be realists. You can follow kind of like different paths in like kind of your outlook on life, your perspective on how you think the world works. But I think if you are not a realist or can think like a realist, you end up in situations like Bush where you're trying to like pull us away and kind of focus things more central in America, and then all of a sudden things start happening and you got to respond. And then again, Afghanistan, questions on like, well, why weren't more resources put there? We go into Iraq, and then more resources are given to the Iraq war than the Afghanistan war. And I mean, people in the military like have asked questions like, well, like one war, like we were all like, yeah, that makes sense. We were responding to an attack. Iraq, it's like WMDs, maybe. Very interesting literature on that as well. On like Saddam Hussein knew he didn't have it, but what he didn't want to do was say he didn't have it because he was concerned Iran would start attacking him if they found out he didn't have these things. Yeah. So like we're kind of like stuck here. It's like, we made bad decisions. Like, they lied to us. It's like, well, they might have. Our government might have lied to us. At the same time, it's clear that Saddam Hussein was very like posturing because his concern was if he doesn't have those weapons, his neighbors, who are just as aggressive as he was, are going to come after him. And so it's like, and this is when like you make bad decisions with bad intelligence, you end up in bad situations. And so like, again, what will happen with Iran? Again, for me, why we would have troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and then wait to invade Iran after we pull troops out of all those places makes no sense. We could have flanked them. Yeah. It's like there's the two-front war, like there's nothing they would be able to do. So it's like, again, don't know what it all is, but it's, again, how we want to rationalize it. People in Iran, they get executed for, the wrestler was executed. The wrestler,
yeah.
They execute people in the streets. I mean, again, is it our duty to go help them? I don't know. It's like I think as a human being, I don't like watching people suffer and being like executed for just voicing their opinions. Makes me cringe. But there's this idea of sovereignty, and I think that's something we really need to like explore, and we could talk about. Is like Brazil's a sovereign country. Venezuela is a sovereign country. We went in and took out their leader, and again, like amazing how they did that is one of the modern miracles in like military
Yeah.
statecraft. I just thinking about it is like, my goodness, this is like when you get that American pride. Oh my goodness, look at what we could do. But that's a dangerous precedent to set. And my concern is like, if the U.S. is going to be world police and kind of like uphold the value system that we believe in, we can't do stuff like that unless we're somehow very like well supported internationally. And obviously with the backlash from everybody globally about what we did in Venezuela, I feel like we're digging ourselves into a hole where, again, maybe we could kind of dig ourselves out of it, but I don't know what's going to happen next.
Well, we need to wrap this up. Like, comment, subscribe to the Puff Drink Talk podcast. Give us
This is so interesting.
a heart, a thumbs up on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. We'll be right back.